Recently held a conference together with law enforcement agencies to discuss compliance issues as well as responsible trading by the liquor traders in the province of Gauteng. We speak now to the head of the Gauteng Liquor Board, Mr. Raymond Martin, who joins me now live in our studios in Johannesburg. Good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you so much for coming through.
Good afternoon, ma'am, and thank you for having us.
Thank you so much indeed. Now, how did this conference come about?
Look, we've been working very closely with the law enforcement agents over a long period of time with regards to enforcement in terms of compliance of the conditions of the licenses of outlets. But subsequently, we realized that there is a gap with relations to the implementation of this same compliance. And we deemed it necessary to then have a conference where we start engaging and discussing what is the best way to move forward, and for us to present what we think is important for all our law enforcement agents to understand exactly what the Gauteng Liquor Act dictates we do in relation to the enforcement and compliance of liquor conditions of the outlets that we have out there.
All right, so what came out of those discussions?
Quite interesting developments, and I think we took stock of the contributions made by law enforcement agents. And I think the one thing that was, I think, significant in the conference was how they welcomed the conference and what we're bringing to them. Because in the main, they were quite excited about the fact that we now want to speak with one voice. So that when we all go out there and do operations as a team, we're able to implement exactly the same thing and not go in opposite directions. So we listened to many of the suggestions that they made, but the commitment that we made is that continuously now we all need to work together to ensure that we bring about compliance in the liquor industry.
It's also been discovered that most of the liquor traders trade beyond their trading hours here in Gauteng. So this is very serious, and the question really is, what's being done to address this particular issue?
Indeed, that's quite common amongst many of our outlets. But as we're saying as a Gauteng Liquor Board, we've done, I think, quite an amount of work, quite a bit of work with our traders. What we have subsequently done now is, before any license is issued now, we are calling all liquor owners who are to get their licenses. So we'd call them to a workshop and take them through the conditions of their licenses so that they clearly understand what is expected of them as a trader, especially as a new trader, because oftentimes they don't do the entire processing of the applications themselves. They rely on consultants to take them through the entire process to do the application, and they get handed over a license at the end without necessarily having gone through the steps and understanding what exactly the conditions of the licenses are. So we've taken it upon ourselves to ensure that we take them through the process and make them understand what the requirements are of anybody who's holding a liquor license in the Gauteng.
But you would agree with me that the conditions and the procedures are just written on a piece of paper. The implementation part of is what the problem is.
Yeah. As we said, part of the conference was to deal specifically with that issue. But remember that we also have our liquor inspectors who visit outlets on a regular basis, day in and day out. Our inspectors visit these areas, these outlets, to ensure that they meet their obligations.
But surely they don't make it to all the outlets,
no,
do
they?
they?
Definitely would not be able to. But we also rely on our the patrons or the residents or members of the communities to raise such issues with us. And once an issue is raised about Ray's Tavern not closing on time, we're definitely able to act. And if we do find that indeed Ray's Tavern is trading beyond their normal hours, we will then convene a hearing where they will be taken to task. And we may even impose a fine of not exceeding 200,000 to ensure that they don't repeat the same offense.
Let's just talk about the strategies really that you have, in terms of trying to elevate the services provided by the Liquor Board. What are your strategies?
For now, one of the critical ones is in terms even of the renewal strategy now. We have a long list of a process that we have embarked upon. So what we do now is we've simplified the process of renewing the process. But what is important now is that we have a certificate that we're going to issue you at the end. That is also to minimize fraud and corruption in terms of renewals. So what we do is we've given you a certificate that has certain security features on it and signed by one person to ensure that that minimizes many acts of
so does that mean that you had many acts of corruption taking place?
Unfortunately, there would have been people outside the business also trying to cash in on some of these renewals. So that's the gap that we're trying to close, especially with implementing the kind of security features that we now have in the new certificate, the renewal certificate that will be issued to all license owners.
Okay, going back to the law enforcement agencies, surely you had this discussion. They may have also raised their concerns. What are they saying? What challenges do they usually come across when they deal with these issues around compliance?
You see, one of the challenge that they have as well is they not understanding whether a license is legitimate or not legitimate. So they would obviously have to phone in from time to time and try and confirm if a license is legit or not. So we've also ensured that we give them a specific person or persons that they would deal with, not everyone, so that as and when they raise issues, they're able to do it and get genuine and legitimate answers from a person who's designated or dedicated to deal specifically with that, because we don't want anybody just confirming, because sometimes you'd find that people are confirming wrong things. So we have a team of people only designated to deal with these queries that are coming from law enforcement agents or any other person for that matter who wants to confirm if a said license is legitimate or not.
Yeah, because really, how would an ordinary person like me be able to identify or distinguish between a legitimate license and an illegitimate one?
It would be difficult for you to do so, ma'am. We must admit, you would not be able to do so. And that's why the training with the law enforcement, because we're showing them exactly what the license type looks like. We may not have delved too much into the security features because we don't want everybody to know exactly what they are.
But is that not a problem to liquor traders who would want to acquire a license if someone just comes and tells them that they're from the liquor board, if they do not know the specific features themselves?
No, you see, because if you allow everybody, tomorrow we'll have many of these copies made out there. So that is why certain things are kept away from people, so that not everybody knows exactly what the features are. Because you know, technology nowadays is capable of making and doing anything. So if you're going to be revealing to all and sundry what the security features are, tomorrow you may have exactly the same document that we are trying to work with and prevent acts of corruption out there actually being there, and us, including ourselves and possibly the police, would not be able to then verify whether this license is legitimate or not. So hence the security features. We've shown a few, but not necessarily some of those, the minute ones that we'd want to keep for ourselves, so that when we do go to an outlet, we are able to pinpoint at a glance and say, no, definitely this one is not our license. This one is definitely our license.
All right, Mr. Martin, time constraints. We'll leave it at that, but thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you so much for having us. We appreciate the time that you've given us.
Thank you so much.